Hey guys, what's going on? So this is a video that I made 7 months ago, and this is just an updated version of that video. Obviously, I don't have a specific time frame for when I update my these kinds of tier lists. This is not a tier list. Tier lists I will always update whenever there's a new major drop. Like right now we're in the process of 24.1, which is a part of 24.0. And next time when there is a 25.0, that's when I will do a new tier list. But for things that basically stay the same, and if I just kept updating it every single tier list, like this video, it would just feel like the same thing, and it would be a very long video for no specific reason. But in the 7 months that I have made that I made this video last, and now that we're in the new scrapper meta, I felt that there were enough changes in this game and enough new information in this game that I felt the need to update this video so that you can have updated information. And I feel like this is the kind of video that I should update every so often, but not every single, major patch. So what is this video? So for everybody that didn't watch this video 7 months ago when I first made it, this is, as the title would suggest, what legendaries should I upgrade? And I made this originally for a couple of different reasons that I will go into now, and if you haven't understood by now, this is literally just an audio podcast. You don't have to be looking at the screen. I will be doing screen stuff like going into different units and their talents, and clicking through them. But other than that, you don't have to look at this video at all. You can just leave this somewhere in your room and listen to this as an audio podcast, because I'm going to be talking for a very long time. I don't know what that time is, but you do. And I trust that it's a very long time. So essentially, the reason why I even made this in the first place was because I always got the question, what legendary should I upgrade? What legendary should I invest in? And there is such a commitment to upgrading legendaries. Between the amount of copies that you need and the amount of crystals that you need, crystals being other legendaries that you've turned into crystals. Yes, I know that Book of Secrets is a workaround. Yes, I know that rune keys are also a workaround. But essentially, to upgrade this Inquisitor to 15, I need the 3 copies that I already have, but I also need 9 crystals, which are 9 bad legendaries. And so the question becomes, what legendaries do you sacrifice? Is everything just good? Now, here's the easy answer to this is that yes, every legendary at 15 is amazing, because of course it is. It is because it is the best that it is now. It's the best that it is currently. If you upgrade every legendary to 15, that's what you should do. Upgrade every legendary to 15. That's your best option. You'll get all the crit percentage. Every legendary is great at 15. Upgrade every legendary to 15. If that's the information that you came for, is every legendary good at 15? Yes. Yes, it is, because that's the best that it ever will be currently, and then it will just get better. So if that is that's the answer that you were looking for, then thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. But for everybody else that doesn't have every legendary at 15, or isn't even kind of close to having every legendary at 15, this video is for you. Whenever I talked about cards, I found whenever I talked about cards, people would inevitably say, oh, but that card's really good at 15, right? I would say, like, for example, I feel like you should upgrade a Inquisitor to 11, right? Oh, but that card is really good at 15. Yeah, because every card is really good at 15. But I feel like if you upgraded it to 11, then I feel like that's, the majority of your usage out of it. And if you really like the unit, then you can upgrade it to 15, right? And that's every unit. Every unit will be better at 15. I'm also doing this to also reinforce the fact that I feel like in terms of upgrading legendaries, you should hard focus all of your efforts into upgrading 1 DPS legendary, 1 attacking legendary, and then focus all of your efforts into upgrading supports. I'm talking about your witch. I'm talking about your trapper. I'm talking about banshee. I'm talking about just enchant sword. I'm talking about scrapper. All of your supports are going to make not only your DPS legendary better, but for the future, it'll make every other DPS card that you get to 15 inevitably better as well. Because the worst thing that you can do as a new player is invest, level 15ing, maxing out a Blade Dancer, and then maxing out an Inquisitor, and then maxing out a Cultist, and then maxing out a Demon Hunter, and then having level 7 Harlequins, Dryads, Scrappers, Witches, and Enchant Swords. That is the worst thing that you can possibly do for your journey in this game. You can only run one, or you should be only running one DPS per deck, but the other 4 slots in your deck are all support cards. It's all cards to support your one DPS card. There is only one DPS card in this deck, and that is Spirit Master. At which point, then I have a Knight Statue, a Scrapper, a Chemist, and a Trapper. There is only one DPS card in this deck. It is a Blade Dancer. And then I have a Knight Statue, a Trapper, a Scrapper, and a Sharpshooter. And the Sharpshooter I'm not even using as a DPS card, just in case you wanted to be smart about that. These are all of the support side of a Sharpshooter. And then in this deck, in this deck, your one major card is your Monk. And then I'm running Dryad, Harlequin, Summoner, and Clown. If you're questioning this deck, I'm not going to explain it in this video. Maybe that's for another video. This is Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter is your main DPS card, and then you're running Harlequin, Scrapper, Enchant Sword, Summoner, right? There is no reason to max out all of your DPS cards before you max out all of your support cards first. So that is my first, that is the thing that I want to impress upon you. As I go through this list of every legendary, max out one DPS card first, and then focus on all of your other support cards. I get the question all the time. Should I upgrade, my Blade Dancer to 11 or my, Cultist to 14, right? I'm just like, max out your Cultist to 14, and then max that out, and then stop focusing on Blade Dancer, and then start focusing on all of your support cards. Stop using resources on multiple DPS cards. If I were to restart this game, that is what I would tell myself. I would tell myself to focus all of my energy on support cards, because you will be running far more support cards in this game than you do DPS cards, because every deck should only have one DPS card. Back in the day, and this is the reason why I did this, back in the day, because no cards had talents, that concept wasn't invented yet, you could have a Dryad at level 7, and it did the same thing at level 15. The only thing that changed was it gave you more morale, and it made your hero quicker. You got your hero power quicker, but that was the only thing that changed. Nowadays, the difference between a level 7 Dryad and a level 15 Dryad is insane. And so maxing out your support cards became more and more effective. It became, because you were getting talents along with stats, everything became better. The difference between having a level 7 Scrapper and a level 15 Scrapper before and now is bonkers. It is absolutely nutty. I would have recommended just as a spoiler ahead, I would have recommended a level 15 Scrapper even before it had talents, which is why I was so close to maxing it, and I finally did. And that was very shortly after Scrapper got talents. I was already trying to max it out because I wanted the 45% double upgrades. And now that I have a max Scrapper is insane. But let's go through this. With all that being said, this guide is to let you know what I think you should invest in, and at what level. I think that, like I said, everything is better at 15, but I think that if you take it to these levels, you will have a good enough time with the unit. Some things I will say you don't need to invest anything at all because it's not good. And even if it becomes better, it's still not great. And other things, I will say, yes, invest everything into this or invest nothing into this. And then other things, I'll just say like, you know, like if you get this to like 9 and you like it, you know, invest more. It really changes for every card. And with the new meta, I felt like there were enough changes to the meta that have changed a lot of my past theories about all of these cards. So we'll start with Banshee here. Honestly, I think you should max out a Banshee. I think that Banshee is not only good as a DPS card, but it is also one of the best supports, specifically, obviously, because of Banshee's Wail. Being able to neutralize boss abilities at your whim whenever you use an activation makes people run one Banshee in a Blade Dancer deck, in a Floral Frenzy Blade Dancer deck. They are running Banshee in Spirit Master decks. And then even if you decide to run it as a DPS card, there are Banshee decks with Earth Elementals that are doing insane amounts of damage, specifically because of the Banshee's Wail. I feel like investing into Banshee is a very smart move, whether or not you are using it as a DPS card, which it is a very good DPS card. But even when you stop using it as a DPS card and you use a Spirit Master, because it maybe does better, then you can still use your level 15 Banshee as a support card, and it's still very good. I think that the Coven ability, Solitude, Growing Anger, and then Decay, I think are the best versions of Infirmity. Solitude, Growing Anger, Infirmity, Banshee's Wail. I think that is the standard the standard build for Banshee. You can fact check me on that. Actually, I can fact check me on that. Here's a 16 billion damage Spirit Master with a Banshee as a support. And it's running Solitude, Growing Anger, Decay. Decay probably because it's a percentage, 20% health. That's pretty good. And then obviously Banshee's Wail. That seems incredibly good. So even in a Spirit Master deck late game, it's running Banshee, and it's because it's that good as a support card. There was also a Banshee deck. Obviously, this is all Spirit Master. Nope. I guess we're just going to get Spirit Master, and I don't want to go too far into this. But there is also a Banshee deck that is also very good as well. And it does like pretty impressive numbers. Again, but specifically because of the 15 ability. It's one of those cards that if you decide to invest in, you have to full invest into it. It does get better as you get more talents. It does get stronger. And if you're using it as your DPS card, you can use it as your DPS card and then use it as your support card, which I can't say about a lot of these cards. I feel like it'll grow as your very good DPS card, and then at 15, you can either keep it as a Banshee deck, or you can start using it in every other deck that you build over the course of your game. I think it's a very good investment. Bruiser currently is running the world. I don't know how it became just Furious Brotherhood became the way to run Bruiser, but Bruiser became just a top tier meta deck in recent memory. I think that because Scrapper got talents, it made Furious Brotherhood so much better. And running Furious Brotherhood on my treat and then Uppercut, I think is the way to go. I think that getting it to 13 is where it really shines. Getting the 15 ability is obviously going to be better, but I don't think that you're going to be sacrificing your... you're not going to be using it for the ability. I think just gaining the extra 5% crit damage from the Ringleader is like the reason why you're using it. I think that when it first came out with talents, everybody was using Awakening Rage, but I think now that Scrapper is so good and so prevalent, it made Furious Brotherhood that much better. I think that the reason why it's so powerful is the 13 ability and not necessarily the 15 ability. So if you do invest into Bruiser, I would invest into 13, and you'll find a lot of success with it. Blade Dancer is incredibly good now. It wasn't. I think that Blooming Dash, if you know me at all, I was very pro Blooming Dash ever since Blade Dancer got talents. It was far and away better than Floral Frenzy. And the thing that changed all of this, and you'll hear me repeat it over and over, this is the Scrapper meta. Scrapper just added so much to this game and to deck building in general that Floral Frenzy became a deck that is competing with meta decks. It is competing against Spirit Masters and Genies and Riding Hoods. And I'm not saying it's winning all the time, but it is winning. And it's insane. The amount of damage that a Blade Dancer deck has the ability to do now is crazy. I don't know if am I not gonna see any really cool ones? I guess I'm not gonna see any really cool ones. But trust me when I say that if you run Floral Frenzy, Fencing, Serrated Blades, and then Dance with the Wind, it's a very strong deck. Specifically because of Scrapper, but I think that if you want this to shine, I think at the very least, you need to get, if you're running it early, I think you need at least Floral Frenzy and Elegant Parry, assuming that you don't have a level 5 Mermaid, because if you cannot cleanse your Blade Dancers, you will just die. I don't think Elegant Parry is a good enough cleanse. I think that you have to have a level 5 Mermaid, but if you don't have a level 5 Mermaid, and you do have Scrapper, and you do have Blade Dancer that's a level 11, I do think that running this deck is very strong. It's like having the Night Statue and having a Scrapper and being able to do infinite stacks on a Scrapper, utilizing a growth tile, being able to get infinite stacks on a growth tile with your Scrapper, and then being able to run double supports is what makes this deck so good. This is like the prototype deck for a lot of builds now. The Spirit Master deck is almost an exact copy, or it is an exact copy, basically. And then, but your biggest problem with the Blade Dancer deck is going to be cleansing. And even though I'm running double counter spells, I'm still running Mermaid. And I'm very strongly choosing not to run Elegant Parry. You run Floral Frenzy, Fencing, and then Serrated Blades and Dance of the Wind. What I am saying is I think that you should get this to at least level 11 so that you can get Elegant Parry, assuming that you don't have a Mermaid. Once you get a level 5 Mermaid, obviously use Fencing with Giants. And then once you get to 15... that's when you'll get Dance with the Wind and you'll be able to do AoE. Having one of Blade Dancer's main problems is the idea that it's a single target thing and it has to keep killing the first thing before it can kill the next thing. With Dance of the Wind, it throws a tornado at a much more, it has a 1% chance, but because Blade Dancer attacks so often, you'll notice that that Dance of the Wind triggers so much. If you don't have the level 15 talent, I would use Triple Lunge, and then when you get Triple Lunge, use Serrated Blades, and then do Dance of the Wind. But I think that if you got this to at least level 11, with the Scrapper, with a level 5 Mermaid, you'll see whether or not you like the deck or not. I don't think it's that great at level 9. But once you get to level 11 and you use, and you have a level 5 Mermaid and you use Fencing with Giant, if you like it, go down this path, maximize it, and it'll do really well for you. Don't invest into Boreas. That's my easy answer. If you have a level 7 Boreas, don't invest any more into Boreas. I know that early on, it is a big thing to love the Grindstone Boreas deck. There was a deck that used Boreas, and it was the J deck, right before they nerfed J's crackshot ability. And that was cute. You could use like Boreas as a quote unquote DPS card. But now that they've nerfed J and that deck doesn't work anymore, I wouldn't invest anything into Boreas. I would leave this at level 7 and never look back. A long time ago, the developer said that they were planning on reworking all of Boreas' talents. Recently, they said there was no plan to rework Boreas' talents. I would, if you have a level 7 Boreas, leave it a level 7 Boreas and literally crystal every single time you get that. The fact that I brought this up to 11 makes me feel terrible because I never use it. I don't really I don't plan on maximizing this until I maximize a lot of other cards. And so my advice to you is leave Boreas at level 7 and never look back. Just be patient for a different DPS card and eventually you'll get one. Invest into that. Whenever you get Boreas, use like automatically magic crystal them and have all of those magic crystals so that when you have another DPS card, when you get the copies for another DPS card, you can get all of those, you can use all those crystals to upgrade your other DPS card. Corsair, same thing. They nerfed Corsair's percentage damage and now it just does regular damage. It's not good. But it's really good at 15. Yeah, again, like everything is good at 15. Boreas is really good at 15 because he has the force of wind, right? It's not good enough to invest all of those crystals, all of those copies, and all of that time. That is my main purpose in doing this video. Yes, everything is good at 15, but not everybody has 72 legendaries lying around so that they can upgrade a Boreas to 15. And that's what it would take. It would take a large time and, time commitment, money commitment. And what I'm trying to tell you is I think that you should save all of those crystals, all of those copies, and turn them into crystals for things that will feel worth it. As of right now, now that they've nerfed Corsair, there is no Corsair deck. A Corsair at level 15 is better than a Corsair at level 7, but it is still not going to win you games, and nobody uses it. Yes, it will be better at 15. Yes, it could potentially be better and be meta whenever it gets talents, but because that doesn't exist yet, my current advice to you is don't invest anything into this card. Cultist. I think that if you get a Cultist to a level 11 and you really like it, invest into 15. I think that the 13, you're not going to really see a big enough of a difference. But once you get to Flames of the Abyss, that jump from 11 to 15 is going to be insane. Flames of the Abyss, I didn't understand how it worked. But essentially what happens is the pulse, it creates a pulse of fire that lasts 2 seconds and happens at where the monsters come in through the gate. The pulse deals 100% of cultist damage value every 0.2 seconds and reduces monsters' armor in the radius by 40%. So not only is it giving you armor reduction, but it is dealing 100% of the cultist damage value every 0.2 seconds. With Harbinger of Evil, constantly giving you plus 2% every time you eat cultists, and then with a crit bow, very specifically a crit bow will give you plus 27%, like my level 15 legendary crit bow is going to give me plus 27% crit damage. My crit damage currently, isn't it here? Oh, never mind. Units. My crit damage currently is 4,585. The cultist damage value is going to be plus 27% of that. And then you multiply the 4,585 with the cultist damage. And that is what the pulse is going to do. it actively takes the maximum amount of damage a cultist can do with the crit bow added to that, and that is how much damage it is doing every 2 seconds to the beginning of the gate, and also armor reducing by 40%. If you were always questioning how does cultist do as much damage as it does, having a level 15 with a crit bow is how it deals so much damage. So if you get to level 11 and you really like the mechanics and you like you understand like the cleansing sacrifice and how that works, I would invest all the way. I would go all the way with it. Take it to 11 because you won't really know if you like it at 9. Definitely don't use Harbinger of the Abyss. They nerfed this and now you need 8 souls. So you need to sacrifice 8 cultists in order for you to send out a monster that will then shaman them. And it's not even good because most people either run cleanse, run mermaid, both, or they have a unit that will cleanse itself anyway, like a spirit master or like an inquisitor. Or so what? You downgraded me one time. Like sometimes it doesn't even matter. You can just merge it out. And because you need to sacrifice 8 cultists in order to make that work, it's not good. I'd rather sacrifice 8 cultists and get plus 16% damage. Never use Harbinger of the Abyss. Use Harbinger of Evil, Cleansing Sacrifice, Unity of the Cult, and then Flames of the Abyss, and never look back. Run it with a crit bow. It's crazy. Demon Hunter. There are a lot of people that still run Demon Hunter. I've tried running Twilight Hunting. The majority of people that run it are still running Absorption of Evil. I think Absorption of Evil, Dark Pact, and then I think there are some people running Stealth Attack. I've seen people run Shadow Twin, either of the two. I don't think Demon Hunter is as good as it used to be simply because the mechanic of how it obtains damage is mitigated by the fact that they made the rounds much quicker. And so you have less time to build up, you have less bosses now, and that is the reason why most Demon Hunter players nowadays are complaining that it's been nerfed and that it's not good anymore. Absorption of Evil is the better talent, but it's based on the amount of bosses and mini bosses that you obtain, and because the rounds get harder earlier, you don't get as many bosses and mini bosses, which means you have to sacrifice Demon Hunters yourself. You have to merge them or you have to scrapper them. And the way that it climbs isn't the same anymore. And that's why Demon Hunter isn't as prevalent of a deck. I think that it's still fine. I think that there are people that have found some amount of success with it, but I think that it's not that great of an investment anymore. If you do like it at 9, you have to get it at 11 in order to use Cloak of Shadows. You will run it with a mermaid. It doesn't have great cleansing mechanics. Dark Pact is fine if you have a mermaid. If you don't have a mermaid, or if you don't have a level 5 or above mermaid, you're definitely going to run Cloak of Shadows and a mermaid. If you do have a mermaid, you can argue that you could probably run Dark Pact, depending on how you build the rest of your deck. If you build the rest of your deck with an enchant sword, I would obviously run Dark Pact. If you build it with a knight statue, I would run it with Cloak of Shadows, obviously, or else you will never be able to upgrade your knight statue. In terms of Stealth Attack or Shadow Twin, the 13 talent and the 15 talent are basically just more power. And so that's why I would suggest it at 11. But if this is going to be your main DPS card, and I don't think it should be, then at that point you just have to take it to 15 because this is power and then this is power. But I think if you take it to 11, you'll realize whether or not you like it or not. And if you do like it, and you do like the mechanic, and you do like that kind of gameplay, then take it to 15. Demon Hunter, this is going to be really easy. 7. Leave this at 7. Never look back. It is a fully talented thing that you can max talent and max out, and I never see it in any game I've ever played. Not seriously, anyway. I've seen it in co-op. I've seen it in decks that I've beaten. It is not good, and nobody has found a home for it. There's no deck. Now that I've said a definitive statement on the internet, like there is no deck with Demon Hunter, I'm gonna get somebody in the comments. I can already see it now. I'm gonna get somebody in the comments. Oh, that's in the Meteor deck. It's really good in the Meteor deck. I don't know. I have never seen it in any kind of serious deck. In any serious, like, oh my god, I might die against this deck. I've never seen it. My advice to you is leave this at 7. Never invest a single ounce of anything into this until you've maxed out everything else. So far, if you've been keeping track, Boreas, Corsair, and then Demonologist, I would just zero investment in. Every time you see these are your magic crystal things. Spirit Master. Spirit Master is a very difficult thing for me to suggest, simply because it is an event hero. Event heroes, I will say this about all the event heroes. In terms of Spirit Master, Genie, and Riding Hood, specifically, you have to max them out. Max them out because they are amazing. And I'll even add Tesla into there. Not necessarily Robot, but I'll add Tesla into there as well. These are all of your 4 DPS cards that are pretty much the best in this game right now. Riding Hood, Genie, Spirit Master, Tesla. All of these cards are going to be good at max. And they are the best cards at max in this game. But the investment, simply because they are specifically event units, that is a $10 investment every single time you want a copy. There are 15 copies that you need to max out a legendary, not including all of the crystals that you'll need. That is $150. You can mitigate that by $20. That when you get to your, like your 3 copies, you can use Book of Secrets instead. It'll be $20 to do 2 books over the course of 2 months, as opposed to $30 to upgrade with 3 copies and 9 crystals. And so you can mitigate that 3 times at 12, 13, and 14 to get it to 15. You can use 3 books. That's what I would suggest. But even in saying that, and even saving $30, it's a lot of copies. It's a lot of copies. It's a lot of investment. And of those, Riding Hood is probably your safest investment. Riding Hood is the best of all 3. I don't envision it getting any weaker. I do see them doing something better than Riding Hood, like introducing another new event unit that's better than Riding Hood, at which point Riding Hood would just be number 2 and it would still be very good. And because they all take the same amount of investment, the same amount of time, the same amount of money, if you were going to invest in any of them, I would invest in Riding Hood. And that's what I would say. If you want me to go into like further detail, I think that Spirit Master, if you only have it at 9, Flame Power is the better one. If you have it at 11, Storm Power, Elixir of Purification is the better one. I think once you get it to 9, you'll start to realize whether or not you like the gameplay. At which point, Stone Power is where you're going to see it really shine. And then if you want to use it as your main DPS, obviously at level 15, you get the Critical Might. But the Critical Might, because they nerfed it, you're not going to see that big of a bump from 13 to 15. It is going to be a bump, but the bump from 11 to 13 is going to be insane. Stone Power is so crazy. The difference between Stone Power and Earth Power, by the way, it's something that I didn't understand when I first used it. The way that Stone Power activates is when it goes into Wind Spirit mode, it has a... not only does it decrease armor by 2.5%, but it has a 30% chance to throw a boulder that deals 200%, and it also decreases armor by 2.5. Whereas Earth Power, the way that works is it activates whenever you press the button. Stone Power, when you press the button, you get a... with Stone Power, you get a 5% chance to throw a boulder dealing 200% area damage. When you press the button, all of your Spirit Masters, for a time, gain a 5% chance of throwing a boulder that deals 200%. With Earth Power, when you press the button, it has a 30% chance of activating, as in sometimes it doesn't activate. Stone Power, when you press it, for a time, all of your Spirit Masters gain a 5% chance to do 200%. It's much better because there is no mana investment, whereas the other one has a chance to fail. This one will always happen. The 5% chance may seem low, but your Spirit Masters on a Night Statue attack so fast, and with the wind speed bonus on your Storm Power, you're throwing so many boulders all the time that you just nuke down bosses, as opposed to what Earth Power does, but you have to keep mana investing into it, and then at which point you just run through your mana, and then you have to run through your mana every single boss. With Stone Power, you just activate it once, and it nukes down bosses. Never use Earth Power. It's not great. It's not better than Stone Power. When you do invest into this, go Storm Power, Elixir, and then Stone Power. Yeah. I told you this is going to be a long one. Dryad. I think that Dryad, this is another reason why I wanted to make this video. Dryad, I thought, was going to get a resurgence after Harlequin Talents came out. It didn't. I thought Harlequin Talents were going to be so amazingly good that it would make Dryad relevant again, and they did not. They nerfed Fairy of Rage to go from a maximum of 50% to a maximum of 30%. It doesn't feel like that big of a difference, but the fact that it is a difference, it makes it worse than Scrapper, and I would recommend you use a deck that uses Scrapper, because I find that Scrapper decks, you're just gaining so many benefits from Scrapper that a Harlequin Dryad deck does not give you. If you are running a Dryad-based deck, where you want to run Dryad and not Scrapper, because don't run both. Scrapper, specifically, you need to eat so many more units if you are running a Dryad in that deck. I would never recommend running both. You are running a deck that is using one or the other. I think that if you are going to run Dryad, I'm gonna say the same thing that I said before. Fairy of Rage, you have to have a Dryad at least at a level 11 for you to be able to even use Fairy of Rage, which is the better of the two talents. If you only have it at 9, use Fairy of Growth. But if you have Fairy of Rage, if you have it at 11, use Fairy of Rage and Gift. And I was doing that forever, and it was fine. I think that it is fine enough. If you're using Dryad anyway, having it at 11 is fine enough. Poisonous Fruit, I've never felt does as much as it's supposed to. I know that pro players think that it does a lot. I've never, if you specifically time it, and if you get really lucky, like on a boss round, and you happen to hit their major units, and you slow them down for 25%, and they don't cleanse, and, a Bedlam hits them because they are slowed by 25%, I can see it working, but I'm just saying, like, in my experience, that is so far and few between that the 13 talent isn't really, I don't really use that for that. You can use it as an extra added bonus whenever you use a fairy with or a dryad with a fairy on it. When you have the 13 talent, you get to free cleanse your units, but you should be cleansing anyway with something else. So I don't think that's a big enough boost. I do think, obviously, the double upgrade is insane. You're never going to do it on anything less than a 3, but going from 3 to 5 is nutty. Going from 4 to 6 is crazy. Like, getting double upgrades just as like a thank you for using Dryad feels so great. And if you are building a deck that's using Dryad anyway and you're not running Scrapper, then you are going to run Dryad and, you know, maximize it to 15, and a level 15 Dryad is very good. And so you won't feel bad about upgrading it to 15. But I'm just saying that if you are new in this game and you have the choice of either running a Harley Quinn Dryad deck or running a Scrapper deck, run a Scrapper deck. Scrapper is just so much better. It's just so much, it does so much for you. And I feel like the amount of bonuses that you get from Scrapper is just crazy. Frost, this is going to be pretty easy. Either invest nothing into it or get it to 15. There is no in between. You will see no difference having it at 9 or having it at 11 or having it at 13. You are either building a toxic deck, at which point you need to full invest into it and get it to 15 so that you can use Frost King, so that you can freeze your opponent, or you are just not using it at all. And so it is your choice. If you want to build the toxic deck, and this goes for all the toxic cards, Sea Dog is one of them, which to a lesser extent is one of them. Frost, Minotaur, and then Meteor, wherever Meteor is. I know I haven't talked, and Meteor. All of those cards, I say which to a lesser extent, we'll get to it. But essentially all of those cards, I would either maximize all the way to 15 or do no investment into any of them. There really is no in between, because all of those cards are very subpar prior to being a level 15. At level 15, they are very, very strong, and they all go into the same deck. Like, you can't even build separate decks with them. Like, if you're trying to build a separate Meteor deck, I think that you just build the toxic deck. If you're trying to build a Sea Dog deck, I think it's best in the toxic deck. If you are trying to build a Minotaur DPS deck, I think it's just better in the toxic deck. And there is no Frost deck. Frost, like Banshee, like with the 15 ability, is a very much so a support card. And I think it's very good. Even though they've nerfed Frost, I think it's very good. The Frost King ability is very strong in a toxic deck, but it's only good if you've maxed it out. So my suggestion to you is either 7 or 15. There is no in between. Harley Quinn, at best, I want to say 9. I'm sorry, 11. At best, I want to say 11 because of Art of Imitation. And at worst, I want to say leave it at 7 and never look back. Harley Quinn talents are so aggressively terrible. And that is another major reason why I wanted to make this this list. To talk about how bad Harley Quinn's talents are and why investing 72 legendaries into this just to say, oh, look at me, I get the copy and paste talent, it's so good. It's not a wise investment. Is it good? Yeah, sure. Every force of wind on a Boreas is good. Would I recommend taking a Boreas to 15 and investing that many legendaries and crystals? No. And that is how I feel about Harlequin. If you are running a deck that is a Harlequin based deck, Cultist, Monk Equilibrium, you're obviously going to run this anyway. And if you are running this deck, if you are running a deck that is not using Scrapper, sure, invest into it. I would say invest into it at 11 to get the Art of Imitation so that you constantly have a 10% bonus to your critical damage. I don't think that the Jester Smack is good enough. It does only hit once, and 5% is not great. And then Jack in the Box doesn't work as well because you can't... it doesn't go to the front where the boss would be. So it feels like it would be a boss killer, like another way to stun boss abilities. It's not. When you merge two Harlequins, it goes to the middle of the field, far away from the boss, and your boss, if you can't kill the boss will use their ability, travel a little bit, then get stunned. And so what I'm trying to say is, if it was a Bedlam and you couldn't kill it, you will get Bedlammed, then it'll travel, then get hit. So Jack in the Box doesn't even work how you would think that it would work. Jester Smack is 5%. It's not great. And then the copy and paste ability it's kind of fine. If you find yourself in that position where you've merged two things and you have an awkward high level Harlequin, it's kind of fine so that you don't get stuck. But to invest that much into a Harlequin, I don't think is smart. I would rather run a deck that is a Scrapper based deck. So I would say just leave it at 7. I had 5 copies prior to the Harlequin Talents coming out, and once they released Harlequin Talents, I basically sacrificed all 5 of my copies in order to get other things, in order to upgrade other things. I don't think it's good. Inquisitor, I think that at 11 is when you will really see an Inquisitor shine. Getting the either using Night of Light and Purification, or using Night of Darkness and then Shield of Faith, you will see whether or not you like Inquisitor. And if you do like Inquisitor, you have to get it to 15. The difference between a level 11 and a level 15 with the Hammer of Faith ability is monumental. As a person who went through and upgraded it to 12, and then got the bonus from 13, and then got the attack bonus from 14, I see no difference between a level 11 and a level 14. But the level 15 Hammer of Faith ability that stuns and deals 777% damage is crazy. A max Inquisitor is nutty. And that is why it's so good. But you do have to full invest into it. So if you get it to 11 and you really like it, the next time you will see a major difference is 15. And expect nothing from 12, 13, or 14. But once you get it to 15, that is when you will see the difference. And I do think that Inquisitor, even though it is not like a top meta card, people still use Inquisitor. People still use Inquisitor, and it is a Scrapper based deck, at which point I think it is automatically better. I think that Inquisitor Clock is still very good. I think that Inquisitor, with, this setup, subbing Inquisitor is still very good, or with Witch. I think most people run it with Witch and with Inquisitor, Witch and Night Statue, and Scrapper, and probably Trapper. So like this literal deck, subbing out Spirit Master and Chemist for Witch and Inquisitor, I think it's very strong. But you do have to get it to 15. So if you do like it at 11, and just you have to full invest into it in 15, because you will see no difference once you get it to 12, 13, 14, 12, 13, or 14. Genie, this is very easy. Max it to 15. Never look back. Rush Royale Tips and Tricks is all about Genie, and I trust that he would give 100%. You should probably max out your Genie. At being one of the top 3 meta decks, Genie is it's just good. It has the ability to punch up. So if you have like a level 11 Genie and you're going up against somebody who has a level, theoretical 13 Blade Dancer, you're probably still going to win. It's very strong and it punches up and it's good. Hex, level 7. Spend no time investing into this card. It's not good. It doesn't have talents. And even at level 15, I've never seen any serious deck use it. Night Statue. I think that Night Statue is very good at 9 because you have access to Sharpened Spear and Covenant of Veteran. I do think that Covenant of Veteran is much better, specifically, again, and I will keep reiterating it, because of Scrapper. Getting stacks on Covenant of Veteran wasn't impossible before, but it was very difficult. Now it is stupidly easy. With Scrapper and with the promotion by merit talent, it is stupidly easy to get infinite stacks on a Covenant of Veteran Night Statue. The difference between a Covenant of Veteran and a Sharpened Spear is nothing. The stack percentage is the same. It's 0.8% up to 50 times, and it's 0.8% up to 50 times, and it's 0.2 after that, and it's 0.2 after that. But it is infinitely easier to get infinite stacks on a Covenant of Veteran in a Scrapper-based deck. Run this with Scrapper. Run this. I feel like Barrier is much better. Most people run Stone Legion because most of the time you will not have your Night Statue around 4 of the same units. Most of the time you will have 2 units on a Night Statue, at which point you're getting no benefit. Even though it would take 2 level 7s to be 14%, whereas this is just have 4 things around it and get 15%. That scenario will almost never happen. And it is actually better to run Stone Legion and get some amount of percentage. But the difference between a level 9 and a level 15 with the Soul of a Warrior is insane. Not only are all of your stat bonuses better, the Barrier is a nice bonus, but it's not really that big of a thing. Stone Legion, again, it's a nice benefit, but it's not really that big of a thing. The Soul of a Warrior is where it's at. Being able to deal damage, as well as have another thing in your deck that also reduces monster armor by 25%, is crazy. And so once you get it to 9, the only thing that you have to do is get it to 15. I don't think that you'll see that big of a benefit from 11 to 13, or from 10 to 14. But the benefit at 15 is insane. Clock. I think that Clock is very good, but I would invest into it all the way, or else you're never going to use it. I think that Clock, even though it doesn't have talents, because it only does the one thing, the only way that you can make it do the one thing better is just by having it at 15. It's kind of like if you decided to run Archer as your DPS card. Because it only does damage, that's all it does. It just deals damage. There is no benefit to having it at 11 as opposed to 15. Because it's only doing the one thing. And at 15, it will do that one thing the best. And I do think that Clock is very good at 15. I think that it is one of the best ways to do a toxic deck. It's not going to win against everything, but I do think that Robot Clock still exists. I do think that Tesla Clock can still exist, and I think that and Dark Inquisitor Clock is still kind of a thing. Whenever they bring talents to Clock, I think it's going to see a big resurgence, and I think that it is an actual safe investment. Isn't this funny that Clock doesn't have talents, and I would still recommend that you take it to 15, and Harley Quinn does have talents, and I'm saying don't invest into it at all. That's how I feel about it. I would much rather invest into this card to level 15, so that when it gets talents and becomes meta again, I will have a max talent Clock, and it'll be insane, and I think it'll be insane. Meteor, Minotaur, both of these cards feel the same to me. I have no investment into either of them. And in terms of a Meteor deck, Meteor decks don't really exist anymore. They're kind of okay. They don't do infinite damage anymore because they've both been nerfed. And so in terms of Meteor and Minotaur, I would say either take them to 15 or don't invest into them at all. If you're not planning on building those two decks, like a toxic deck, where you need everything at level 15, I can't heavily tell you to invest into this, unless you're planning out on maxing out every card, because these decks don't work without unmaxed cards. Like a Frost doesn't work without the level 15. A Minotaur as your main DPS card in that deck doesn't work if it's not at least a 15. Meteor, without the Apocalypse ability, I don't think is that great anymore. Now that they've nerfed percentage damage, I don't think having a less than 15 Meteor is going to be that great, without the potential to do an Apocalypse. Yeah, but that's my thoughts on both of those cards. Monk, I think that Monk is one of the best cards in this game right now. And despite what most people will say that Monk got nerfed or Monk is not good, Monk, Equilibrium, Illumination, at early stage can push you so far. And it'll push you to a point where you won't be able to push anymore, at which point you switch to Blessing and Tranquility, and you push even further. Blessing Tranquility is the best version of Monk, and it just gets better with Novice, so that you can produce more Monks, so that you can sacrifice them to your Blessing. And then once you get to Nirvana and you get the 5%, and your intersection bonus to 50%, and then you get all the additional damage. And added to the fact that because of the wave change, they reduced Monk's cooldown for when he can use the power up again. Because they reduced the cooldown, it's even better now. Monk Blessing is so strong. I don't know if there's this is like a 3 billion damage game. Again, I don't want to look too far into this, but Monk Blessing is just so strong. It's what most pro people run, and it's very good. But yeah, Enchant Sword. This is my controversial take. I think that you should invest into Enchant Sword at 13 and then stop. I don't think that you're gaining that much with Growing Supremacy as a talent. Obviously, the percentages are going to be better from 13 to 15, but I think that if you get it to 13, you will have a good enough Enchant Sword. If it is your main support card in your deck, obviously take it to 15. But I don't think that having it at less than 13 is very good. It's another example of a card that only does the one thing. And And if you're going to merge 2 enchant swords and have those orbs go randomly to things, right? You want the maximum benefit out of that because it's random and because you're having to summon in 2 units in order to make a random unit a little bit more powerful, and it's random. It's not. Sometimes it'll go to your chemist or your trapper or things that you don't care about. And if you have like a level 7 version of this, you're still doing the amount of effort that you would if you had a level 13 version of this. But at a level 13, once you get Eternal Gaze, it's just much better. It's much better number-wise because you're getting a level 13 version out of it. And with an Eternal Gaze, once you have a awakened blue sword on the field, you get free splashes every single boss round. And then that's what you're trying to keep. You're trying to merge out all of your regular blue swords and keep an awakened blue sword on the field so that it splashes your entire field like 5 times. And that is where I think it really shines. And I think that getting it to the jump from 13 to 15, I don't think is that big of a difference. I think that if you had it at 13, it's good enough that you can then focus on other things. But I also don't think that you can reasonably use this at less than 13. So this is a very strange one. Enchant Sword is good in the decks that it's good in. Obviously, those decks are not going to be Night Statue decks. And so it's going to be good in like a Demon Hunter deck, in a... I've seen people use it for an Inquisitor deck, in Monk decks. But I think that you should at the very least get it to 13 before you start actively using it, because you are utilizing the same amount of effort that you would with the level 7, but you are gaining so much better of a benefit. Riding Hood, just take it to 15. I think that it's another card like Genie that punches up. I've seen level 11s take down level 15 Legendaries. It's the best card in this game. What is there to say? Robot is not a DPS card. It is very specifically a toxic card. And so your Stun Rocket, and your, I believe Rocket Salvo. Is it Rocket Salvo? Yeah. Stun Rocket, Rocket Salvo are going to be your bread and butter for Robot. In the decks that it's being used as a toxic card, it is also being used as your main DPS card. But make no mistake, it is not going to do a lot of DPS. Because the rest of your deck is not supporting the fact that it is a DPS card. It is supporting the idea that it is a toxic card. The rest of your decks is gonna be built with some combination of Harlequin, Mime, Summoner, Witch, Shaman, Clock. None of these cards are adding to Summoner maybe, but none of these cards are adding to Robot's damage. And so because you're running against decks with a DPS card where all 4 of their other cards are just damage, modifiers, damage modifier, damage modifier. Robot is never going to out damage anything. So getting it to 13 to get you to arms race, or getting it to 15 so that you have the BRG laser, it is a bonus. But if you aren't building it as a toxic card in a maxed out toxic deck, like a maxed out Clock, a maxed out Witch, a maxed out, all of these other things, if you're not using it as a toxic card and you're not trying to win before it goes into late game, you are going to lose. The 13 and 15 talent will push you into a later version of the game, but realistically, you need to win before that. Because if you haven't won by then, you're not going to win. So investment into Robot is kind of weird, also because it's an event hero. And so getting a level 15 is going to be much more difficult, obviously. But that's my thought on my thoughts on Robot. I think that it's good at 11. It's obviously better at 13 and 15 with those talents because you can push later into later game. But if you're pushing into later game, you're gonna lose. Is my point. Scrapper. There's nothing I can say about Scrapper that I haven't already said talking about all these other cards. Scrapper at literally every level just gets better and better and better. It gets better at 9 when you can finally use the Scrapper Maul or Waste Free. If you only have the 9, use Waste Free. If you have the 11, use Scrapper Maul and never look back. I've tried using Successful Shift. I like the consistency of promotion by merit. I think that it's just easier to run Scrapper. Labor Enthusiast is a very much so a win more card. If you were already gonna win, you're now gonna win even more. So I would also never use that. Acrid Waste is what everybody uses. This is the setup that everybody uses. It's left, right, right. Acrid Waste giving you the plus 13% to armor destruction up to 26%. The Scrap-A-Mall giving all of your units plus 30% damage. And then Triple Quota giving you a chance to do 3 triple upgrades is crazy. Getting double upgrades is crazy. Even getting single upgrades is crazy. Run Scrapper, upgrade Scrapper, max out if you are going to max out any support card, max out a Scrapper. It will change your life. Stasis, 0 investment. I would leave this at 7. Honestly, I would leave this at 7. Summoner, I think that you have to have it at least at level 9 in order to use Enhanced Summoning. I think Enhanced Summoning is so much far and away better than Multiple. But I think that the reason why maxed out players are using Summoner is specifically because of the 13 and the 15 talent. Those are going to be your damage modifiers. It's not necessarily Curse of the Spirit or Blessing of the Spirit. Those are your mana modifiers. And while those are good in toxic builds, you're never going to use Blessing. And Curse is really good in toxic builds, but again, that requires a maxed out toxic deck. So you're not really going to see that benefit either. The time that this really shines is Gift of the Ancestor and One with Nature. But that requires you to max it out. And like I've said, once you max out your DPS card, you should work on maxing out your support cards. Maxing out a Summoner, if your deck runs Summoner, like a Robot deck, like a Monk deck, it's going to make it, you're going to push so much more damage if you have the 13 and the 15 talent. Tesla, it's another event unit. You just have to max it out to 15. I think that it's very good at 11. But I think that the 13 Lightning Strike is where it's probably going to be at. I think that Megawatt is much more damage. But I do think that if you get it to at least 13, it's at the very least usable. Being able to do, with a chance of 2.3% per rank per Tesla, 100% damage is a crazy bump. It's not just a damage bump, it is a crazy damage bump. Being able to do 100% of your damage just every so often, each of your Teslas, is crazy. But I think that it's just another event unit that is very strong that you just kind of need at 15. Trapper, I feel like this is also another card that like a clock, you just need to have at level 15. I currently have a Spirit Master deck that I've been running. It's this deck. Most of it is maxed out. I have a maxed out Spirit Master, a maxed out Night Statue, a maxed out Scrapper, and a maxed out Chemist, and a level 15, which is where it's important for Amari. And I still feel Like, the only reason why I'm only hitting 13 billions of damage and not 50s, 60s, 100s, 200 billion damage is because I only have a level 11 Trapper. And Trapper does the same thing at level 7 that it does at level 15, but the defense bonus numbers are so much higher. Because it only does the one thing, you have to do the one thing at its best. And at its best, it's just a level 15. Like Clock, I would invest very heavily into Trapper